Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Training Industry Learning Tech Showcase, Learning Management Systems, sponsored by Exonify, Bridge, Is Easy, Litmos, and Wisetail. I'm Avery Vogt, Events Manager here at Training Industry, and I'm so happy you could join us today. Before we get started, I'd like to quickly go over just a few housekeeping items to help you interact with our speaker and get the most out of today's program. Throughout today's event, please feel free to use the chat for comments and submit questions in the Q&A panel. All questions will be addressed during the event or at the end of the program during our Q&A section. At the end of the event, you'll notice a short survey has popped open in your browser. We'd appreciate your thoughts on today's event. And as always, all of our sessions are being recorded and will be archived on trainingindustry.com, and you will receive an email from us with a link to the on-demand sessions. If this is your first training industry event, a special welcome goes out to you. Training Industry exists to make connections among learning and development professionals. We offer tons of resources to support your role in L&D through live events like today's Learning Tech Showcase, as well as through articles on our website, our magazine, conferences, research reports, and our podcast. Visit trainingindustry.com to learn more. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker, Mark Blakemore. Mark is a senior solutions consultant with over 7 years of experience with Litmos. He started out as an account manager back when Litmos was called Learning Heroes. His first big project was migrating 180 customers from Moodle to Litmos. After this project, he moved into mentoring, helping businesses implement Litmos as a solution for 3 years. Over a year ago, he made a move to the solutions team where he enjoys helping prospective clients achieve the best evaluation of the Litmos product. And Mark, we are super excited to have you here today. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Avery. Well, it's lovely to meet you all and to see such a wide group of variety of people joining from all over. So I couldn't have introduced myself better, which is good because I don't need to share any slides or anything like that. We're going to jump straight into the demonstration. I'm just going to start sharing my screen now, if that's okay.
Go ahead, I'll stop my share.
Thank you very much. Perfect. So that should be coming up on the screen now. It'd be good to know if you can all see this clearly.
Looks great.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Well, today we're going to be jumping into a day in the life as a Litmos admin. Now, typically we'll start off with some form of to-do list just to go through what we're going to be covering today. So first and foremost, we're going to be looking at some compliance training management. So we've got a new cybersecurity overview course where we're going to be setting up some due dates and an automatic compliance refresher period before picking up back in progress with a course that we've created as part of the onboarding welcome course. So we'll open up that from the admin perspective, showing you how we can automate that step as well, just to make it easy for new starters to have that automatically assigned to their dashboard. Then we'll look at some compliance and team reporting before finishing off, of course, with our own personal learning. As admins, we still need to stay active and keep learning. So what you can see here is the Litmos dashboard. For anyone who's not seen this, this is the area where, as a learner, you'll be logging into the platform. Now, we'll be coming back to this towards the end of the demonstration, but while we're here, this is essentially all the courses that have been assigned directly to my dashboard. And as mentioned, we'll be picking back up with in progress with some of that training a little bit later. But where we're going to start is with compliance. So what we've got here is a new course which we need to set some compliance periods up for our learners to automatically take. So in the course settings, now this is the same for every course in Litmos, we have a great feature which enables you to set up those exact due dates and compliance. So we can do this together now. So what we're looking at here is a particular period in which you would like the learner to complete this course. So I've decided that from when this course has been assigned to the learner, they've got 4 weeks in which to complete it. Now, my favorite part as an admin, I don't have to keep manually chasing users or sending them reminders to complete that training because Litmos is going to do that automatically for us. So if we take a look at the options here, we've got the ability to send out those automated emails at a cadence which suits. So in this scenario, it's 4 weeks from when the course has been assigned, maybe 2 weeks before that due date is up, we'd like to send additional reminders. Now we might send them every day, But to stop overwhelming the learner's inbox with those reminders, we might decide to cap it at 5. Another great feature which helps to keep on track of those learners who haven't completed it within that period, we have the escalations option, which is a further step 4 weeks from when the course has been assigned. Maybe it's, week 5 now. Escalations will notify the admin to say this particular learner hasn't completed it within that period. Now, hopefully everybody does it within that time, but if they didn't, what we've got the option to do now is to look at the compliance date. So they've completed that training. Now we can choose how the refresher period looks. So maybe this is for 365 days every year. The learner needs to retake that particular training. So Litmos makes this really easy. We'll set the compliant date for 365 days. Because we know it needs to be refreshed year upon year, what we can do in this scenario is to set up that automatic retake period. So if you remember the dashboard that we first logged into Litmos, if that course had been completed in a year's time, potentially 30 days prior to that compliance needing to be done again, here's where we can set up that automatic retake period. So that's just automatically going back on the learner's dashboard. I certainly don't need to go back and assign them that course again because this is all getting taken care of in the background. And then those final parameters really to decide potentially how long we'd like to send those additional reminders. So with it being compliance, you might decide to send it maybe every day. You might not decide to set a cap on the amount of emails because we need to ensure that learners are completing that course before it's due for renewal. And then the final steps, what happens if a learner didn't complete that course within the allotted time? Escalations will notify me to let us know if that happens to any user for us to then check up on. Now, it'd be good to hear in the chat and maybe to pick this up a little bit later if you guys are currently solving for any issues like this now, or potentially you may have some questions on the setup of this, and I'd be more than happy to jump in. But
Hey, Mark.
oh, yes.
Sorry, there was one question that came in that I wanted you to address before you moved on. Claire was asking, does this mean email reminders will start at 14 days, but they will only get 5, so 14, 13, 12, 11, and 10th day before it is due?
It's a great point. So here we've got the automatic email reminders set to start 14 days before the due date. We're going to send a reminder every day until this course has been completed or 5 reminders have been sent. So after 5 days, that would no longer be sent to the learner, but you could have different permutations. You might not overwhelm them too much and maybe send it every 2 days. And that's where you'll just clarify how many emails you'd like the system to send before stopping to not overwhelm their inbox. So they would receive, in this scenario, 14 days before it's due, an additional reminder every day until 5 emails have been sent and it wouldn't send anymore. I hope that answered your question, and please let us know if you need any more information to go with that.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. There was another question that came through here. Do you want me to grab that one too? Yeah, it's about just elaborating on the enable escalations feature.
Yep. So with the escalations, it's not always required to be enabled at a course level, but what can happen is the admins can be escalated to from the system when a learner falls out of that due date period. So if they were set 4 weeks to complete it, as mentioned, they get to week 5. What will happen is at that point, the admin will be notified that they've now got a learner who's not completed it within that period, and it's an automatic escalation email just to help admins figure out, who those learners are who have potentially fallen behind to then help them get back up to speed. And then it's the same with those compliance reminders. So maybe they've completed the course within the set period. After the compliance refresher runs out, the system can then escalate to an admin when a learner hasn't completed it before that refresher has run out as well. So it's a great way of letting the system take care of those checking up of information to see whether they've completed the course just by having these parameters set up at the course level. And as an admin, I know that I'm going to be sent, the escalation points if people haven't completed the course, as well as Litmos automatically sending out a lot of those emails without us needing to do much work. Is there any other points to cover off on that one?
There are quite a few questions coming through. I can keep giving them to you, or if you want to save them for the end, we could address them at the end as well.
Yeah, maybe we'll come back to escalations and we can take a deeper dive into that if it's following on from that talk track, but we'll certainly have time at the end to pick up some of those questions. But thank you very much for sending them in the chat. Okay, so we can take a look at our tasks for the day. So we've completed our compliance training management. Next on the list is onboarding content creation to finish off designing the onboarding welcome course. So at Litmos, we have a content authoring tool inbuilt with the system, which is going to allow you to create your own SCORM content directly in the platform itself. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this course together and then finish it off. It'd be good to know if anyone in the chat is maybe familiar with HRIS or Articulate or many of the other content authoring tools out there, just to see how this compares. Now, I'm quite confident if you've created a PowerPoint before, you would be able to create content in Litmos, because rather than it being slide by slide, we're going to be creating page by page. So there's a list of templates to help get you started. And then it's a case of bringing all that information to the actual course itself. So you'll notice in the top here, we have a cover image. This is really intuitive to play around with. So you certainly do not need to be an instructional designer as mentioned. If you were just going for static color, you'll notice that the system is picking up on the theme, which has already been used just for speed of deployment. But more than likely, you'll have your own images that you'd like to display in here before moving on to the next part where we can start to add some information to the screen. So I left the introduction out on purpose because what we're going to do now in the classic, here's one I made a little bit earlier, is include the information that the learner will be presented with as they open this course. Now, this is to do with all of the storytelling, if you like, that we can add to the page. So you'll notice here in blue, here are all of our options when it comes to adding different pieces of information to the page. The example that we chose earlier with text with heading, you might want to put some information into a list. Very easy to use. It's just a case of deciding which component type you'd like to use, and then it's a case of adding the information in. Once we've got all the information on the page, we can start to look at bringing those different media types in. So everything that's about to come up in green are those options for media types, whether it be a static image as an example. You might have the MP4 that you're looking to upload directly to the platform. We also have links to Vimeo and YouTube as well, where you could potentially take some of those assets that are already out there and incorporate them into your training. So the example we've got here is a YouTube link. So all we need to do is fill in the URL on the right-hand side for the video ID. And then we've actually got some extra options when it comes to controlling maybe how much of that video needs to be watched. If it was, brief introduction, you might only need them to watch 50%. If there's a key learning requirement included, it's good to set this at 100% completion. We can then mark this step as required. And what that will do, we're building all this on one page for this demonstration. But the chances are you'll be building this out across multiple pages. So by marking this step as required, it will actually stop the learner from progressing until they've watched all of that video. So it's a great way of controlling their journey through the actual training to ensure that they're picking up all of those key points. And then we can move on to add maybe some extra information for clarity under the video. So here is an example on the storytellers of a block quote. And again, all of this is just starting to come together fairly quickly just by adding some options here. Now, if I think back to my time as a mentor, I used to speak about many different ways of creating content. And I think, first of all, most of these assets did start off as maybe PowerPoints or PDFs. And through using the Litmos content authoring tool, a lot of my customers at the time, they were recreating them, redesigning them into e-learning content. But there's still potentially a requirement to give that original PowerPoint or PDF as a resource to take away. So we can actually include that step here. We can include some detail that we'd like to present to the learner before taking away the actual document itself. And then it's just a case then of choosing the file we'd like to present to the learner as a download, where now they can take this away as part of the course as they're making their way through the training. Next up, we have the options to ask for call to action. So potentially we want the learner to click different parts of the screen to reveal some different information. So we have an example of flip cards we're going to work through together in just a moment. But you'll notice we've got the ability to have different ways of maybe presenting them in an accordion view, very similar to sort of that tabs look and feel, or maybe it's a grid reveal where we'd like them to click to reveal more information. But the example we're going to work on is a flip card. So first and foremost, what image do we want to be presented to the learner before clicking into the actual flip card? So with the options which I uploaded prior to completing this course, you might wish to include some information like click here as an example. And then what we're going to do is we're going to choose the information that we want to present behind the flip card. So if we choose this option here, you'll notice it's the same components that you've got options to use. So as you're building content, you will become familiar with this fairly quickly. And in this scenario, we're going to add some text with heading. So we've got our mission statement to add to this section. So we'll pop that into the heading. And then we've got some information here to put underneath. That looks good to me. And then we can move on, jump back to the option we were at before, and then let's edit the second flip card. And in this scenario, we've got some more text with heading to include, and this is our vision statement. So this can come together fairly quickly, as mentioned. The fact that you maybe have a lot of this information already built in those PowerPoints or PDFs means that you can just easily copy and paste that information over, but making it more interactive by using these different component types that you can see here. Now we've got the information added, we've gone through all the learning requirements. Now it's time to quiz the learner. So there's a whole range of quiz questions which you can use to ask your learners different questions here. We've got multiple choice. Potentially, we would like the answer in a particular sequence or click to match, as we're going to see in a moment. But what we're going to do first is we're going to take a look at a multiple choice option. So the question being, when was Litmos founded? And if you noticed a little bit earlier, it should have said 2007. And then we can add those different answers in to the course, and then we can move on to the next question. So in this scenario, we might want the learner to match an answer to a statement. So what we've got here is the ability to add those columns over here. So here's the statement, and then the answer we would like to match it to, or what describes the answer best, will pop here on the right-hand side. And we can add another pair. I'm taking a look at our content here as one of the statements. And again, all of this will come together fairly quickly. It's just a case of bringing in all that detail together. And of course, you'll build out all the different question types that you'd expect the learner to have to go through. And then what we can do next is define the quiz results. I'm sorry if this is giving you a little bit of a headache as we're scrolling down and trying to not do it too fast. But in the quiz results, this is where you can specify, what the pass rate is, how many attempts you'd like to give the learner. In this occasion, it might well be that the learner's got to get 100%. We would like to give them 2 attempts. And then it's just a case then of sense checking the overall course. What I like to do as I'm building this course as part of the onboarding is I want to add a declaration statement just to add that level of accountability onto the learner, whereby what we can say in this scenario is I understood the training and I am ready to exit the course. And unless this tick box was checked by the learner, it wouldn't complete the course. So it's a great way of putting that accountability on the learner to say, yes, I understood all the training. Now, that's not necessary for all training requirements, but especially for onboarding, it's a good one to include. Your final steps really here would be to preview the course overall, and you'll notice we've got some options here to help proof it across those different device sizes. So whether it be being accessed on the mobile phone as an example, the tablet, the desktop, we can ensure that everything looks as it should, all the information's being revealed, and then we can take a quick look through the quiz to make sure everything is working as expected. Your final steps, once you're happy with the course, you can publish it directly to the platform. This is going to enable your learners for them to have access to it through the different assignment options. But a key point here is the fact that you can actually export this content as you're creating it. This is your content that you're building at the end of the day. There's no extraction fees. As soon as you've built this course, you can take it away and back it up in the cloud again. You should technically have that course forever at that point, and then we can jump on with the next task. So if we take a look at what we've done
Hey,
next.
Mark, can I
Oh,
ask
yes, any questions
really,
on that? Of course.
yeah, just one question. So Viviana is asking, instead of using YouTube or Vimeo, can we host videos in Litmos?
Yes. So what you would do in that scenario is just use the video option. And then you can upload the video, maybe add those transcripts if you've got them as well. And then you'll notice we've got some other options when we're uploading a static MP4 where we can prevent the learner from fast forwarding through the course or potentially putting it on like times two speed. You can control them requirements here. So absolutely, you can host your own videos inside of the courses.
Awesome. Thank you. And then, sorry, one more.
Please do.
You are showing us how to build in Litmos. Does this mean you can't design it in Storyline? I might have missed it when you said this in the beginning, they said. Yeah.
No, it's a really good point. So what we're doing here is we're building an actual course using our content authoring tool. If you've already got content ready to go, whether that be in SCORM format, the different resources, I'll just zoom in case that's a little bit far away for anyone. Anything that's been built in Articulate, typically it's exported into SCORM. You just upload that into the system and that would create your next module type. So yes, absolutely, you can bring in other content from other areas. Was
Thank
there
you.
any other points on that?
They were also just asking about like when exporting the content, what format it would be in.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's just quickly show that. So it's SCORM 1.2 that it will be exported in, and that'll come up just here for you. Great. Should we continue?
awesome. Yeah.
Perfect. I love ticking these tasks off. So next we've got automate course assignment for all new starters. So based on the piece of content that we've just created, we might want to start pushing this out so that as soon as new starters are added to the system, they're automatically going to have that content assigned. So we have a great feature called Litmus Assign. It's essentially almost like a rule-based or a logic-based system where we can use different filters to have certain actions, maybe be assigning a particular course. If you're building out a series of courses in a learning path, you could assign the direct learning path in this scenario, or maybe it's associating the user with a particular team. But the scenario we're looking at now is when a new starter is added to the system, let's automatically assign them that training content. So the unique identifier for anybody who's new would be the date that they're created. And because we're doing this webinar today, what we're going to tell the system is anybody who's added greater than today's date, then what we want to do is to assign them the onboarding welcome course that we made just a moment ago. Next step is to set up a frequency. So here we can decide, and new users could be added to the system at any point. Manual people could be being added to the system. If we've got this synced up with our HRS system, people will be automatically provisioned into the platform. So rather than me as an admin having to go in and figure out who the new starters are and make sure they've got the right content, what we can ask the system to do is maybe every 4 hours, constantly look for anybody who's created greater than today's date, which would make them new. And the action is to assign them the onboarding welcome course, or it could be the induction learning path. Where this feature works really great as well is as job roles can change and profile information can change in the back end, what we can do is if you've got certain training requirements associated with a particular job role, let's choose Chief Human Resources Officer as the example, anybody with that job title can just automatically be assigned the correct learning path. And as people are promoted or hired into new roles, you can be rest assured that regardless of what happens, because we have these rules set up, nobody shouldn't have access to anything which is going to help them with their job. So this feature gives me a lot of time back in the day, not having to do those manual course assignments or checking to see the new starters have had their training put on their dashboards automatically, because this rule will just run constantly in the background at a frequency that suits. Now, I'm hoping there's some excited people in the chat if anybody's having to do that manually at the moment. But is there any questions that have popped up as we've been going through that?
it looks like one question came at the bottom. Is there a limit on how many users the rule can pick up?
No, as long as it matches the parameters here, it's just going to run and execute on that hourly basis. So it wouldn't be a cap or anything like that on the amount of people it can assign content to.
Awesome.
Perfect. I think what we'll do next then, after we've completed our task here, is to take a look at some compliance and team reporting. So if we navigate to the reporting engine, what we have is an overall dashboard here. So as an admin, I can see over the last 30 days how many courses have been completed, new people that have been added to the system. We can also take a look at our most active courses or who our most active people are. We do have quick reports on the right-hand side. Now, the emphasis is on the word quick. As an admin, I might just want to jump into the platform and take a look at all the people in the system, figure out how many courses they've been assigned and where they're up to with their completion. Because we've got a compliance report to do, we can jump into the compliance summary. And here's a list of all the courses where compliance is attached. And what we can easily identify in this section are the number of users who are compliant against the number of users it's been assigned to, giving us that overall compliance number, which is always great to feed back into the business. Now, what you can actually do at this step is drill down into that overall course, take a look at who those users, those learners who are compliant and who are not. And potentially what we need to do now is to figure out the users who are not compliant, run the report, and then we've got some download or scheduling of this report where if it is a one-off, you can just take it away here. But the chances are you might want to be updated maybe every week as to what's happened with those learners who aren't compliant. So we've built our compliance summary report. Now we need to do an overall team report to figure out what's been happening inside of the platform in terms of course completions. So to do that, we'll jump to the reporting engine. Here we've got the ability to look at all of our learners' achievements inside of the tool. Now, to make this easy, Litmos actually pre-populates a lot of the columns for the admins as well. So you'll notice here we've got username, first name, last name, right through to the date that the course was completed. And then as an admin, it's up to me to decide, what extra information we'd like to see in there. Maybe it's some of that profile information which is being added. It could be some of those custom fields that you've added against your learners as well. But in this scenario, what I'm most interested in is how long is it taking my learners to complete this training. The rest looks good to me. Now it's a case of, well, who are we assigning it to? So it might well be that we're doing a cross-team report. We might want to look at certain individuals in this scenario. But because I've got an all users report where I need to feed back into the business, everything that's been completed, we can start to set that report up here. So what we're asking for is all users, all courses that have been completed. Now we can actually filter before it gets to Excel just to speed the process up because we know that we're only interested in courses people have done. If we wanted to see what they hadn't, it's a slightly different report, of course. But this looks good to me. Next up is the preview. So it gives us a chance to take a look at all the information we've asked for the report to generate. It might well be we don't need the created date. I certainly don't need the reference code. So as an admin, I'll just jump back to this section, take out those column headers, which I don't need. It'll remember where we left off. Now this looks good to me. It's a cleanse report. It's what do we do next? So we can take it away as a download now if you just need it as a one-off, of course. But as mentioned, you might need this potentially every 30 days, feeding back into the business what's been completed by the teams on that period. So what we can do here is start to schedule that report. So on the first of each month, I might change this from midnight just so I don't get an email at that time to 9 a.m. And what's going to happen here is that's just going to export as a CSV and it's going to be sent directly to my inbox. I don't need to log into Litmos now to get this report. It's going to arrive, as mentioned, straight to the inbox, potentially giving you 15 minutes back of your time every time you needed to go in and generate that report. And if you've got any colleagues who need to see this report, rather than them having to go in and build it themselves, you might well include them in the email to section just so that they've got it at that same cadence that we've been speaking about. But now we're happy with that. Our reporting's been done for the day. We can jump back to check out the last tasks. Of course, finish off our personal learning. This is where we started the overall demonstration. Can't believe how fast this has gone, actually. It's flown by. So what we can do next is jump back to our learners dashboard. And in this scenario, we're going to be picking back up with that training, which we've currently got in progress. I'll just wait for the Wi-Fi in Manchester to speed itself up. But here we go. It's just coming back onto the screen now. While I'm just waiting for that to refresh, it's a good point to see if there's been any questions in the chat.
Yes, lots of questions. But I think here's one that someone called out. What about AI? This will simplify content creation. Can you talk a little bit about any AI features?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we can do is we'll jump back to that overall course that we've got here, and I'll just start to talk about our AI content capabilities. So in terms of what you can do within the course that we've got generated here, our AI assistant is contained to the Litmos solution. It's not like a chat GPT plugin where it's going to start hallucinating and bringing back all the different data sources it can find. Our AI assistant is going to index all of the content which has been made available to it in the system, and it can use the information it's found there to then generate information within the course itself. So you would have noticed as we were going through here that AI enhanced is next to certain components. So whether it's adding information to the screen, maybe it was to present some information behind those flip cards. But as an example, just to go a little bit off the talk track, but I think it'll be good to understand. In this scenario, it could well be, please, I always say please to the AI assistants because you just never know. Please, can you create a introduction to a new cyber security course? Now, because the AI assistant is contained to the platform, I know it's not going to pull any information that it's not got access to. And because this solution has some of that Litmos content preloaded, it can take a look at all that information and then use this to generate information in the course itself. And then what will happen is after it's found out the information, what we're going to have the ability to do is to potentially make that statement a little bit shorter, make it a little bit longer, potentially make it sound more casual or more professional. But it feel like the Wi-Fi today has decided of all days to run a little bit slower. But is there any other questions I can be answering while we're just waiting for this to generate?
I think we have time for like one more question, Mark, and then we do have to wrap up the
Oh,
session. But let's
awesome.
see. Sort of going back to the reminders part,
Yeah.
are these customizable per program or session instead of like having it impact all programs?
Let's take a look. I think I know what the question would have been. So you've got a list of different email templates which you can then customize in terms of what the learner will be sent. So if it was a compliance reminder, it's just a case then of jumping into our email templates and maybe just changing the messaging in here. We have some placeholders on the right hand side which will automatically generate, the first name, the last name, how many days are reminding, but you might just decide to change the messaging and the language used in here. But yes, you can customize the email templates, of course.
Awesome. Thank you.
I feel like that might be the right place to start. I can't believe how fast that went, to be
I
honest.
know, right?
If anybody has any other questions, I'd love to take this offline. My details will be attached in the webinar, of course. You can find me on LinkedIn if you prefer to do a quick message on there, but happy to take anything on email as well. But I just want to thank you all for watching that. It was really good to speak to you all.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, Mark. And yes, I just want to reiterate that we will pass along any questions that we didn't get an opportunity to address. We'll share that with Mark and his team so that they can follow up with all of you. And thank you again, Mark, so much for your time today and walking through all that. It was really, really great and informative. And I just want